Today we are looking at murder. It's not called murder, it's called deception. Murder in Hong Kong. This is a pretty crazy game. Now, the reason I say that is because it's a social deduction game, but it does some things that are so different, so small in the changes, but so small but different and huge that it makes for a really, really good game. Now, one reason you may hate social deduction games, one reason my wife hates social deduction games but loves this game, is that often if you are the murderer, you're the killer, you're the one that's against everyone else, it seems like everyone's just looking at you and they're like, it's you, and you're like, it's not me. That kind of sucks because you're like literally just trying to lie and all this kind of stuff, but you don't have to do that in this game nearly as much. I really, really like the way that this game plays. Each player has 8 mini cards in front of them. 4 of them have items on them that were at the crime scene. 4 of them are items that could have been used that were the means of murder. So those are going to be your classic gun, knife, drugs, like all sorts of different things. There are a bunch of cards, so I'm not going to get into too much detail. And then you've got the random cards of the other ones that could be like, oh, there's a love letter at the scene. So each player has 8 cards in front of them, 4 of each type. And so your focus isn't on the people, it's on the cards. And this changes so much because you can be looking at the cards of the other people around you, and you've got one person that is I think maybe they're the private investigator or something. There's one special kind of role card where there's one person that knows who the killer is, and the killer, everyone's going to get a card. It's going to be an investigator, killer, or whatever the other one is. And if you play with 6 or more, there's some special ones, but we won't talk about that yet. And so as you're playing this game, you've got these clues that are out that the private investigator is giving because they know who the killer is and the 2 items that they selected. And so there's going to be these different cards out here that are going to say location of the crime. Where was the location? So if I was the private investigator, I could choose, oh, I think the bookstore really makes sense because the card that this person selected was a book. Like, that makes perfect sense. Or I'm going to go ahead and pick this was the job of the murderer. There's a bunch of little tiles that have a bunch of options that you'll flip over. Let me just show you one. Why am I talking about it? Let me show you one. They're all of these tiles. Wow, this got messy quick. Like this one right here, duration of the crime. So you've got a bunch of options on here. Was the crime instantaneous? Was it brief, gradual, prolonged, a few days, or unclear? And so that right there, if I was the private investigator, I really hope that's the role, otherwise I'm really confusing you guys. I would there's a little bullet token on one of these. And so I'm trying to give clues to the investigators. And so if it was prolonged, well, it probably wasn't a sniper, you know what I mean? And so you're trying to rule different things out, and each person's going to take 30 seconds, and they're going to say, oh, because he said prolonged, I think it's not the sniper because this and this and this and this and this. And so you're trying to give clues to the private investigator of how you're thinking so that he can change those out, because there's like 6 of these that are out, and he can, throughout the game, you play 3 different rounds, he can change some of these. So it's like people are really talking about this one and that's actually a bad clue. I'm going to take that one out. So overall, this is an incredible game because it is a social deduction game. You can play 4 players up to 12 players, and that is just a really nice number. You can play with a lot of people. You can play with a fairly small group. You can even put in a 3-person variant that I was thinking on my own, but I guess I don't know if the game even says that or not, so I shouldn't say that. But it's very approachable, very easy. I think you could play with 2 players and just one person try and get the other person to guess what are the ones that I'm thinking. It's very much more of a communication type game than a social deduction game in some senses, because you're not you're not like looking at people and thinking, yeah, that person's really it. It doesn't get divisive and crazy like some other ones do. So I really like this game. I really, really like it. It plays quick, and I really think all the roles are just really nice. It's going to be interesting. I've not played with 6 or more, which is where you add in the extra characters. And you've got a witness, which is a good guy, but he knows who the bad guy is and what he selects. But if the murderer figures out who the witness is, then the murderer can still win. So if he can say, oh, it was Jeff. Jeff was definitely, like, very obviously knowing what I selected, so it's him. Then the murderer could still win. And then there's an accomplice who also knows, and they're trying to help the murderer out. So fun game. Really enjoy it. Have enjoyed all of my plays. Have played with a couple of different groups multiple times. It's definitely a game where you can play, and a lot of times you'll say, let's play another one, for sure. Let's try another one. I want to try that role. Can I be the private investigator or whatever? Really, really fun game. So that is Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. Hopefully it gives you a nice little touch and a taste of what this game is, what it does, and why it may or may not be right for you. Thanks.